Hello once again and assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another interview on Break Your Face TV. We are honored to be joined today by a former MMA fighter, but a man who is currently doing so much for the sport that we all love. Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO of KHK Sports and KHK MMA and the president of Brave Combat Federation, Mr. Mohammad the Hawk Shahid. Mr. Shahid, how are you today, sir?
I'm amazing. Happy to be here.
We're happy to have you, sir. Now, of course, we've got so much that we want to talk about and so much big news coming out of Bahrain lately. But let's start with what's been in all of the headlines in the MMA world, the very first MMA Super Cup. First, we've got to congratulate you on the announcement of this tournament, which will be the very first of its kind and organized by Brave Combat Federation, KHK Sports, and the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation, or the IMMAF. Now, this is a very interesting development in the world of MMA. It's a team-based tournament that will be the biggest amateur MMA event in history. On top of that, it'll be held during Brave International Combat Week in Bahrain, the biggest international celebration of MMA in the world. Mr. Shahid, we're all super excited. So if you may please give us just a little bit more information on the structure of the tournament, the teams involved, and why everyone's eyes should be on this event.
Perfect. Actually, the mixed martial art, the MMA Super Cup in association with IMMAF, the idea of actually creating this tournament was part of our long history of developing MMA as a sport itself. What IMMAF has done for the past 10 years, what Brave has done in the past 6 years, both of us have been working towards the same goal, and that's MMA development in the world. We always say that our vision is very simple: to change the MMA industry from an event business to a sports business, and that's been always our goal. So this event is very special for us because this is an event that is going to do several positive things to the MMA world. Number one is for the viewers and the people who are going to be actually watching this event. On simple terms, it's going to be very easy to the eyes, and that's the most important thing we wanted to do with MMA amateur events, because every event that you watch, including the World Championships, you always see a blue and red T-shirt, rash guards fighting against each other. You really don't know who's fighting who, and you'll have to see the corners, and you see if you identify someone, you realize that, okay, that's the country. But when you watch a FIFA World Cup, you see yellow and you're like, is that Brazil? You see orange, Holland, so you have this thing in your mind that you're plugged to understanding which team is playing against which team. So it's easy to the eyes when you have the uniforms. So that's why we changed the structure, the format, to each country will be having their own uniforms, team kits, and that's going to be a little bit exciting. On the second side, it has to be easy to understand. So we know, you and me, we are MMA fans. We know the 10-9 system. We know the judging, three judges going to be judging the event and all that stuff. But what's going to be even more easy to understand is who's going to win this competition. Is it Russia or Kazakhstan? Is it Ukraine or Arab champions? Is it Bahrain or Ireland? So when you have the scoring system, 9 versus 9, you know that whoever wins 5 fights out of that wins the competition. And when you have the scoring on the scoring system, when you know that 3 wins, 4 losses, you understand where it's going. 1 more win for the other team, and you understand. So it's easy to understand, easy to the eye. But even more crucial from that is it's a team event, which means you could be the best fighter at heavyweight or welterweight, but you lose you win your fight doesn't mean that you're going to qualify to the semifinals. You need the whole team to win, and that instills something which is different from the individual fan base structure we've had in combat sports for a very long time, to a team factor where I need Bahrain to win and I need Russia to win. Whoever you're cheering for, you want to make sure that the whole team performs regardless of one individual. So it's easy to be global stars through that. If it is a 4-4 and the final fight, the guy wins and takes them to the next round, that's going to be interesting for him. Regardless of how big he is, he's going to be a national hero, but also adds a lot of interest from the national level. So you, as a country, as a government, as a regulatory authority, you know that you want to be looking at the team's development rather than having one individual fight and know that I'm going to come back home with 20 people going to the event, one will bring the medal back. Instead of that, it's more of a team format. Last and final thing, of course, is going to be the first event that's actually going to give revenue to the national federations, and that's something that we have missed. If you look at big organizations like FIFA or ICC, you see them funding the national federation. That's something that we're missing in combat sports, where the international federation does not fund the national federations, and the national federations usually have to make their funding through the registration through athletes, through gyms, and different criteria that they use. But of course, this is going to be a very interesting and new system that's going to come to combat sports, where an international federation is creating an event where the national federation is able to make an amount that they can reinvest back into the development. That's why, and it's also interesting because the odds are great. You're talking about first place, second place, and third place going to have a cash prize out of the 8 teams. So the odds are not bad. When it is 30 teams or 12 teams or 22 teams, that's when it's going to be a little more tougher to be in the top 3. But finally, definitely, you're going to see the best fights from each country coming to this competition, because you don't have to rely on athletes who are able to pay the registration fee to be the only ones that's going to be coming into the event. You're just going to go and select the best 9 fighters in your country, because there's no cost. The whole cost is going to be taken care by the MMA Super Cup organizers. So their flights, their accommodation, there's no registration fee. So there's zero cost for the team and the coaches. So you're actually going to bring the best team that can actually win and take that prize money home. So this is going to be exciting for us. And I think that's what makes this MMA Super Cup so much special. And finally, I think this is the World Championship, the Asians, Oceanias, all the events that's under the IMMAF annual calendar is going to be a qualifier to the MMA Super Cup, because this is not for everybody. It's only selected 6 nations. That's the top 6 ranked nations under the IMMAF World Ranking. That's the 6 nations that is invited to this MMA Super Cup. Of course, we don't neglect the development side of the sport. So we do add 2 wildcards. So the countries that didn't have the opportunity, didn't have the finances or the funding to go into the international competitions, at least have a chance to be part of this. And that's why during the inaugural event, MMA Super Cup, we decided to have, instead of 2 countries, we want to make it 2 regions, So that's why the Arab champions and the Balkan champions, so that we get much more countries together. And these are the 2 areas that has done a lot of development program for athletes, for professional, for amateurs, and as a group for mixed martial arts. So I think they deserve to be here.
It all sounds amazing, very exciting, good opportunity for these athletes to represent their country. And if that wasn't motivation enough, $100,000 for the first place federation should be some added motivation as well. Now, when I first heard about this though, Shahid, I also wondered whether you would consider signing any of these fighters to Brave if you see that they have the potential to compete at a professional level.
Well, I mean, if you look at Brave Combat Federation's history, we've signed a lot of athletes from the amateur IMMAF competition level. Mohamed is one of the biggest examples of the athletes that we've not only signed from the IMMAF World Championships or the competitions, but we've also looked after him since we've been scouting him since the age of 15. And there's a clear Instagram message when His Highness Sheikh Khalid actually tagged me on Mohamed Makayev's page. This was when he was 15-year-old. That was the first time when it was His Highness Sheikh Khalid who scouted him and looked at him and saw his talent. And that's when he tagged me on it. And that's when I started looking at this kid. And from that time, we started supporting him. And here it is, So we have a history of signing athletes from MMAF. But again, we don't know who's turning pro, when they want to turn pro. But MMA Super Cup is going to be the ideal event where we know the transition is going to happen, because at the end of the day, we want to look at the best athletes from each country. So when we see the World Championship, we are seeing the best athletes compete, but at the same time, we don't know that if there's an athlete that could have been taking that place if we had the registration fee. On the other hand, we don't know if they are the highest level to compete for their country at the amateur level. So when you look at the MMA Super Cup, there is no question that these are the best athletes at the amateur level, because they're going to look at the criteria of who has experience competing in the MMA Worlds, who has won more podiums, who has competed at the higher level. So all that criteria that makes them the most ideal or the potential signing to move into pro division. It's going to be these athletes. Again, it comes down to if they want to stay another year as an amateur, how long they want to stay as an amateur. But if there is anyone that you want to sign from amateur level, it's going to be these athletes in the MMA Super Cup. And that's not just for Brave, that's for every promotion that's out there has to be watching MMA Super Cup, because that's the end game for an amateur, because they're the best in their countries.
Yeah, it's definitely an opportunity to shine. Now, as we mentioned earlier, this will all take place during Brave International Combat Week, which is a big celebration of MMA, plenty of events and festivities. Combat weeks of previous years have had some of the biggest names in MMA giving an appearance, such as Wanderlei Silva, Frankie Edgar. This year, of course, Brave International Combat Week will culminate with Brave CF 57, the very first Brave event of 2022. Now, you've already announced one of the fights, a bantamweight title fight between Bahrain's very own Hamza al-Kooheji and Brad Katona, who's fighting out of John Kavanagh's gym, SPG Ireland, also the home of MMA superstar Conor McGregor. Now tell us please what you expect out of this fight and what a win would mean for each of these fighters.
This division has been a historic division for Brave because even till today, bantamweight has been in the history books of Philippines MMA because the previous champion, Stefan Lohman, till today is the longest reigning champion or title holder in the history of Philippines MMA. And that's been the story, unlike our lightweight division, which is a curse, that nobody ever holds a title or defends a title. We've never seen somebody defend the title. But unlike that, the bantamweight division has been a historic in terms of having the best talents that's out there. Even if you look at today's bantamweight division, Shodi Torres has moved up to the bantamweight division. You have Mohamed Bachayev from Sweden gym that he's been 10-0 until he fought Gamzat, who knocked him out, and that was one of the biggest upset of the year. And Gamzat is one of the guys, like we discussed about, who came from the IMMAF circuit, and he's showcased that he's one of the best talents that's going to be out there. So this title fight is going to be reactivating that crazy division of bantamweight that's in Brave Combat Federation, with all those talents waiting for that title to be announced so we can go for it. So first of all, for both of these guys, winning this means a lot of hungry fighters with top talents waiting for them. But on the other hand, for Hamza Kooheji, this is historic, because this is not just about MMA or Hamza Kooheji or his career. This is about what he's going to achieve for the Kingdom of Bahrain, because this is going to be, he's like the Muhammad Ali, he's like the Mike Tyson. He's going to be that big professional athlete, going to be holding the world championship title for the first time in combat sports history for the Kingdom of Bahrain at a global stage. So that's a weight he will carry, and to make sure that he's doing that in his home country, that's going to be even more pressure. So it's big for him, not for him as an individual. The whole country is going to be waiting for it. People who are in MMA, combat sports, and sports world. It is something historic for the Kingdom of Bahrain. But on the other hand, he's not going to get an easy pass, because the title contender that he's having is Brad Katona. And if you ask John Kavanagh, every time I speak to him, he says that this kid is the most special kid that I've met. And believe me, Shahid, give this kid an opportunity and you see what he's going to be able to do. And we've seen him, because he's not just a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's competed in top level competitions. He knows his art. He's been at that pressure level. He's won top competitions. He's proved himself a lot of times. But at the same time, he's come from a Golden Glove boxing background, while he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu under John Kavanagh. So it's not going to be an easy fight. It's going to be a big fight. But for SBG Gym, this is going to be their first ever gold that they're going to be making at Brave Combat Federation. And John has been hunting for that Brave gold for a very long time. And they've had, I don't know how happy he will be, but we've always say that Brave has been a curse for SBG in terms of the amount of fighters that's coming from SBG, and had a tough time at Brave Combat Federation. But definitely John wants to change that. He wants to put his mark in the legacy of Brave Combat Federation as a promotion. And there's no better way than this. It's not just a legacy that he's going to show that SBG can survive at Brave Combat Federation, but it's more like he's going to have his hands on, his gym is going to have their hands on the goal for the first time. So excited for the fight, excited for Bahrain, excited for the bantamweight division. Once this fight kick-started, I think there's going to be a lot of stories going to be told about the bantamweight division, because the lineup that's behind these two contenders are some crazy, crazy talents.
It should be a great one, but my question is it going to be the main event?
See, it has to be the main event, 100%, because this is a historic moment for Bahrain, and it's hosted by Bahrain. So there's no bigger main event that I can add for the country, because every time we go to a country, we deliver for them. We give that country. When we went to Philippines, the only reason that event really happened was because of Stefan Lohman. I mean, we took him around the world. He competed, defended his title against the best of the best in the bantamweight division in their home countries and abroad. And he never got to do that at his home country. That's why we took all the efforts, took the challenge, and went to Philippines and held an event in Philippines so that he could fight in his home country. And that's Hamza Kooheji's situation. This kid has been working hard since 2016. He's competed, and he thought he's going to be fighting for the title in the same year. But 2016 passed, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and here we are in 22. And that's what his chances. And I really, really appreciate that Hamza Kooheji's patience, hard work, and dedication, and being consistent. And that's the tough challenge for a lot of fighters, to be patient enough to know that the time will come at the right time. And here is that time, when MMA is so big in Middle East, every top events are happening in this region. Bahrain is booming with the development of MMA. And here is an actual time when the right peak of the development of the sport, he got his title shot. And that's so I think he deserves to be the main event. Although it's tough because we have a lot of other fights lined up that is equally as big to be able to be the main event.
Now, I'm glad that you touched on that because we've heard whispers, Shahid. There are rumors going around as to the most anticipated rematch in Arab MMA. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about, of course, Mohamed Fakhreddine and Mohamed Saeed Maalem. We all saw the first fight in August 2021. The result, of course, overturned by the Italian Mixed Martial Arts Federation. 5 months later, we're still waiting for an official announcement. Is there any news with regards to these two gentlemen?
I'll be honest. I am tired of this fight because I have no faith that this fight will happen or something is going to go wrong, because this has been a story for a very long time and it's been crazy. Because when you talk about the historic side of this event, I mean, these two guys hate each other, right? They just don't like each other for one reason or the other. They just don't like each other. I thought it was a social media thing, it was a fan thing, but I just realized, I talked to these guys personally, especially when I have a phone call or a message, I know how much hatred is there for each other. So that's one thing. On the other hand, these two are legends, and in terms of Mohamed Fakhreddine, the most loved Arab MMA fighter, and he's been, if you look at the history of and legacy of mixed martial in the Arab world, you cannot have that without mentioning Mohamed Fakhreddine. He's going to be part of that legacy and the history of Middle East. For him to be the first two-division champion for Brave Combat Federation, make history for the Middle East, the global promotion, that's going to be something really, really special. That's really historic for him as an individual. That's a legacy that he's going to be building. So there's a historic factor for both Maalem and for Fakhreddine when it comes to the significance of this fight for individuals. But then there is a hatred side where that fight was supposed to happen. It did not happen. And somehow Mohamed Maalem came and spoke what he spoke on the cage to his fans during that event when Fakhru had to pull out due to a medical emergency. And that just burned, it was like putting oil on the fire, and the hatred just increased, and it was a mess. And after that, you saw all that Twitter and Instagram things that's going on, and then we put them back again. And this time, Maalem wins the fight. Again, things go wrong, and that's where it is. It gets overturned by the regulatory authority, and we're back to square one. And here we are. I'm going to make the third fight happen. You are absolutely right. The news is right. Mohamed Fakhreddine and Maalem is going to fight for the third time. But I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen this time. Will the fight happen? Will there be a decision made? We have to find a decision for these two this time around. And I hope that happens in Bahrain. But, you know, I'll leave it to fate. You know, something's going to happen because it's always gone. Something has been wrong. So, personally, as an MMA fan, I just wish that there's a decision being made and one of them are going to go back home with the title fair and square this time.
We're super excited for that fight. Now, finally, Shahid, 2021 was a big year for Brave. Plenty of events held by Brave in countries around the world, including Russia, Bahrain, Belarus, Italy, Kazakhstan, and Poland. We saw huge fights where titles changed hands, fighters cemented their names in MMA history. Brave just keeps growing, mashallah, and keeps proving that it is truly a global MMA organization. What can we expect from Brave in 2022?
I mean, I'll be honest. After we finished 2019, we didn't know where it's going to go with the pandemic around the world, you know, but that is when we realized that we cannot take a step back because we're fighting for a cause, and the cause is to change the mixed martial promotion, the industry itself, from an event business to a sports business. That's always been the vision and the mission for Brave Combat Federation. And the most important thing to make that happen was empowering the International Mixed Martial Federation, because without an international regulatory authority as strong as FIFA, you will always have a challenge to create whatever structure you're trying to build. And that was what we did in 17, 18, and 19 when we held the World Championship outside of the UFC Fight Week, and we took it and brought it to Bahrain and broke all the records and made it one of the biggest world championships. On the other hand, from the Braves' perspective, the first and foremost important plan was to globalize. So we stick to what we said, giving fighters opportunity from around the world, regardless of race, nationality, or even marketability. And hopefully we can see a Lionel Messi without having to hear his interviews, with talent being the only variable. So we can tell our kids, you don't have to be a YouTube star, or you don't have to learn how to trash talk, and you don't have to be marketable. As long as you have the talent, you can be the best fighter, because MMA has that structure that can create you to talent, if create into a star if you have the talent. And that's what we are missing in mixed martial art. We globalized to give that opportunity, and we announced the Brave National League, which is going to be the center core of the structure going to be built, because every country needs their league, like NFL, NBA, La Liga, Bundesliga. We need to create that structures. That's why we travel around the world, united the national federations, united the promotions that are working at each country. That's why we did a lot of co-promotions as well. So we brought the national federations, international federations, and the promotions that are working hard in these countries together to add a new structure, because it cannot be done alone. And 2020, if we would have stopped, like the so-called big promotions that's out there, if we would have stopped for a whole year, then we weren't brave enough, and that's not why we named ourselves Brave Combat Federation. We had to be brave to fight for the cause, and we had a mission to accomplish. So we did have to go back and continue the event, but not just continue the event. Like in 2021, a lot of promotions have continued their events, but stuck in their own territories. And we want to make that change, and we want to make sure that we still globalize and we still stick to what we did. And that's why we traveled to European market, because that was an important market that we were missing. Although we went to African continent, Southeast Asia, West Asia, we were still missing Europe, and that's where we really focused in 2021. And like you said, when you were mentioning the names, to just clicking me, oh, we went there too, so I forgot myself how many European countries we went, but we did that to make sure that Europe today has a promotion that is a European promotion that has the largest market share in European continent, and that's Brave Combat Federation today. So 2022, we want to move and continue with that, empowering the MMA International Federation, the regulatory authority. That's why the MMA Super Cup, a great start to show that we are back with the Brave International Combat Week, so that we create the largest mixed martial art event in the Asian continent, along with the MMA Super Cup. And at the same time, we want to go back and start working on the national leagues. But to be honest, 2020 and 2021 taught us one thing, is not to predict how 2022 will go, because we really don't know. To be honest, we had plans to go back to Africa in the first quarter of 2022, but here we are. That's not going to be possible, so that's going to be a challenge. So it is what it is. Our plans are changing, but from the history of the last 2 years, that Brave is going to continue globalizing. We're going to keep traveling to different part of the world and do what we are doing. But the National League is going to be our priority to start working on that, because 2023 is the official launch of the National Leagues in at least 2 to 3 countries. And meanwhile, we're going to still globalize with Brave, go around the world. We're excited to go to new territories like Korea. So that's going to be something exciting for us. We've been waiting for that event for a very long time. And I hope that pandemic is going to be a little bit kind to us in making that happen.
Inshallah it will. We're looking forward to it. We cannot wait to see what this year has in store for us. It's only the beginning of the year, and already we have plenty of news regarding the coming months. Shahid, on behalf of MMA fans around the world and anyone involved in mixed martial arts, I want to thank you for doing so much for the sport and really putting in so much effort to develop it and bring even more attention to it. I myself also want to thank you for your time, which you have been so generous with. Congratulations once again on the announcement of the Super Cup. We look forward to seeing you at Brave International Combat Week and wish you plenty of success in 2022.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.